Most people think of recovery as something that only happens during sleep. They believe rest is passive, that restoration only comes when consciousness fades. But that belief is incomplete, and in some cases, dangerously misleading. Because the truth is, there is a way to trigger deep, neurologically restorative states while fully awake. There exists within the human body a mechanism of divine precision, a system so intelligently designed that when activated, it calls down restoration from the highest levels of the brain's architecture. It is not found in a pill nor purchased with silver. It is hidden in the breath, in stillness, in intentional surrender of the conscious mind. This practice, known in scientific language as non-sleep deep rest NSDR, is not a hack, not a trick, but a biological sacrament. It taps into the very circuitry that the Creator Himself wove into our nervous system from the beginning, a circuit capable of releasing the body and mind from the bondage of stress, fatigue, and emotional weight in minutes, not hours. In just 10 minutes of NSDR, measurable biochemical shifts occur. The hormone cortisol, often called the stress hormone, begins to fall. Its grip on the heart, the lungs, the immune system, the mind, it loosens. This is not imagination, this is blood-level science. The pituitary signals the adrenal glands to stand down, and the body shifts from fight or flight into rest and digest. Dopamine, the molecule of motivation, of focus, of drive, it does not disappear but becomes steady, no longer spiked and crashing like the world teaches us to live. It stabilizes. That balance is not a mood trick. It is the foundation for rebuilding. Through this simple but precise protocol of focused attention and guided breath, the parasympathetic nervous system is called forth like a priest stepping into a war zone. It does not shout. It does not fight. It simply orders chaos into stillness. The sympathetic nervous system, often overdriven by our modern lives, is subdued. What results is not sleep, but something deeper, a state where the body is awake but resting, alert but surrendered, conscious but recharging. And within that state, the mind begins to recalibrate. Systems that have been read, lining for days, weeks, even months, slow their pace. Blood flow shifts to parts of the brain responsible for insight, learning, healing. The hippocampus, the region of memory and navigation, begins to restore itself. The prefrontal cortex, our seat of decision-making and attention, begins to rebuild. And all of this is triggered not by medication or stimulation, but by surrendering control in a deliberate and structured way. What is more sacred than the ability to recover at will, to access, by discipline and design, a space where the body heals and the mind returns to clarity? This is not new. This was gifted to us in the very formation of our flesh and spirit. NSDR is the gateway through which we re-enter the temple of restoration. It is the practice of laying down the burdens of the world for 10 intentional minutes, so that we may rise with the strength of 8 hours of divine sleep coursing through our system. Certainly, here is the expansion of Keynote No. 2, written in a highly engaging, powerful, and spiritually resonant tone, without any headings or ending sentences. When the human brain enters the deep valley of sleep, it begins to hum with a rhythm not seen in waking hours, slow, deliberate, powerful. These rhythms, delta waves, are not simply signs of sleep. They are the divine language of healing. But what if I told you that your mind could speak that same language while you remain fully awake? What if 10 minutes of intentional practice could bring your brain into a state where the same patterns of restoration, the same depth of recalibration, occur without needing to lie down or close your eyes? This is the astonishing power of non-sleep deep rest, a neurological state in which the brain waves slow down to mimic those found in the deepest stages of sleep, yet consciousness remains. This is not mysticism, this is measurable. In laboratories, EEG scans of individuals practicing NSDR have revealed that the brain begins to emit waves strikingly similar to those of slow wave sleep. Theta, delta, these are not just lines on a graph, they are sacred signatures of neural renewal. In this state, the glymphatic system. The brain's internal cleansing network activates more freely. It begins to remove the cellular waste that accumulates during our waking hours, the debris of thought, the metabolic aftermath of stress, decisions, and information overload. This is not passive rest. This is active healing, engaged through stillness. Within these 10 minutes, the body follows the brain's lead. Heart rate slows, blood pressure eases, the immune system begins to reorient. Systems that were inflamed and overclocked by the relentless pace of modern life begin to settle like the sea after a storm. And all of this happens without the need for unconsciousness. That is the brilliance of this design. You are awake, yet recovering. You are conscious, yet rebuilding. The duality of this state is where its power lies. It allows the mind to remain available for intention, even as the body and brain are being washed in neurochemical renewal. The spiritual weight of this is not to be overlooked. In Scripture, rest is not merely suggested, it is commanded. Not as idleness, but as alignment. Sleep deep rest is the physiological embodiment of that command. It is a moment where the body aligns with the cadence it was always meant to know, a rhythm of peace, of repair, of return. When the brainwaves shift, when the breath slows, when the systems reset, we are not just resting, we are reconnecting with the order of creation. The science is precise, but the effect is sacred. The brain hums the song of sleep while the spirit remains awake, alert, and fully present. In that place, clarity returns, energy is reborn, and the world loses its grip on your nervous system. 10 minutes to feel like 8 hours because the body knows, and the mind obeys, certainly. Here is the expansion of Keynote No. 3. Written in a highly engaging, spiritual, and powerful tone, without headings or ending sentences. In every breath you take, there is a gateway. A divine interface between body and mind, spirit and flesh. Most pass through life unaware of this sacred rhythm, breathing by instinct but never by intention. Yet the breath is not merely survival. It is a tool, a weapon, a sanctuary. When used with precision, it becomes the key to unlocking the autonomic nervous system, the silent command center that governs the tides of your inner world. And when paired with deliberate awareness of the body, with a still mind that scans each limb, each muscle, each pulse point, the nervous system begins to shift. Not by force, but by design. This is where true rest is born. When you slow the breath, when you elongate the exhale, you send a signal into the depths of your physiology. The vagus nerve, the great communicator between brain and body, receives this signal like a prophetic message. It tells the heart to slow. It tells the adrenal system to lower its arms. It tells the immune system that peace has returned. This is not fiction. It is fact, inscribed into your biology by the very hand of the Creator. The sympathetic nervous system, which drives stress, speed, and survival, begins to fade into silence. In its place, the parasympathetic system takes the throne, ushering in calm, clarity, digestion, healing. This transition is not random. It is commanded by breath and awareness. When you combine that breath with a systematic body, scan a gentle sweep of attention from the crown of the head to the soles of the feet. You are not merely observing. You are taking authority. You are reminding your nervous system that you are not a slave to the noise, to the urgency, to the chaos that surrounds you. You are retraining your brain to feel safe, to feel grounded, to reconnect with the present. And in that moment of presence, the past loses power and the future loses fear. The now becomes your refuge. This is the architecture of non. Sleep deep rest. It is not passive. It is active surrender. It is intention wrapped in physiology. Every breath, every moment of still awareness becomes an act of spiritual alignment. Your mind detaches from the storm and your body returns to homeostasis. This is where blood flow returns to your brain's prefrontal cortex. This is where heart rate variability improves. This is where longevity is not just imagined, but encoded. The body is no longer in defense mode. It is in creation mode, rebuilding cells, rebalancing hormones, restoring clarity. And all of this begins with a breath, not just any breath, but one taken with reverence, with control, with understanding that the breath was never meant to be wasted. It was meant to be used, wielded, and offered back to the body as a tool of mastery. Breath by breath, scan by scan, the nervous system kneels. And in that kneeling, strength is born. Here is the expansion of Keynote No. For, written in a powerful, engaging, and spiritually resonant tone without headings or ending sentences, within your brain lies a gift so profound that it defines your ability to grow, to heal, to transform, not just physically, but spiritually. It is called neuroplasticity. This is not just a scientific term struggling, it is the fingerprint of divine design. It means that your brain is not fixed. It is not bound by the past. It is moldable, adaptable, and it is always listening. Every thought, every repetition, every intention sends a signal to the brain. This matters, build here. And what you build becomes your reality. But to build something lasting, something aligned with strength, clarity, and peace, the ground must first be prepared. That is what non-sleep deep rest does. It tills the soil of the mind so new roots can grow. In this sacred state of rest, not unconscious, not distracted, but deeply alert and internally focused, the brain becomes incredibly receptive. This is where the gates of neuroplasticity swing wide open. The chemical environment changes. Acetylcholine, the molecule of focus, rises in the brain. Neurotrophins, the proteins that promote neural growth and connection, begin to flow like rivers. The stress response is muted, which is crucial, because a brain under constant threat does not build. It survives, but a brain at peace can create new circuits, and in those circuits lie new behaviors, new habits, new identities. This is where transformation begins. Imagine taking just 10 minutes, stepping away from the noise of the world, entering into this state of focused stillness. Your breath slows, your body softens, but your mind awakens not outward but inward. This is not escape. This is training. The deeper you go into this rest, the more malleable your brain becomes. And when you return, when you step back into life, the mind is not just restored, it is rewired. You respond differently, you learn faster, you remember deeper. The habits that were once walls become doors. The cycles that once held you down begin to dissolve, not through willpower alone, but through the rewiring of the very pathways that led you into them. The sacred beauty of neuroplasticity is that it honors your effort, it rewards what you repeat, and NSDR prepares the ground so what you plant takes root. Whether you speak a new affirmation, begin a new discipline, or break an old pattern, and if it is planted in a brain ready to receive, it multiplies. This is why intentional rest is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It is not idle time, it is strategic alignment. It is the preparation of your inner architecture to carry new levels of strength, focus, and peace. And it begins when you choose to turn inward, to breathe, to surrender the surface so the deep can be activated. 10 minutes becomes a furnace. In stillness, you are reshaped. In silence, the brain bends. Neuroplasticity responds not to noise, but to focus. Not to fear, but to presence. And in that holy presence, transformation is no longer a hope. It is a law written into your biology. Here is the expansion of Keynote No. 5. Written in a deeply powerful, engaging, and spiritually infused tone, with no headings and no ending sentences. There is a part of your brain that governs your highest potential. It does not shout. It does not beg for attention. It leads with clarity, vision, discipline. It is called the prefrontal cortex, and it is what separates you from the chaos. It is the region responsible for your ability to plan, to resist temptation, to focus when everything is screaming for your attention. But in a world addicted to distraction, this sacred space becomes overrun, dimmed, silenced. Constant alerts, nonstop noise, emotional turbulence. They all hijack the nervous system and mute the voice of purpose. But there is a way back, 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes of deliberate, sacred reset, and the prefrontal cortex begins to rise again. In the state of nonce, leap deep rest when the body is still, the breath is slow, and the mind is unhooked from the external world. The prefrontal cortex is given space to repair. The blood flow returns, the noise recedes. This part of your brain begins to light up again, not in reaction, but in control. It is as if a veil is lifted. Suddenly, the confusion and emotional static of the day lose their grip. You begin to think again, not just react. You begin to see clearly, not just survive, and from that clarity comes authority. The truth is, stress steals leadership. When the brain is locked in survival, the prefrontal cortex is overridden by older, more primitive systems designed only to defend and escape. You cannot create in that state, you cannot build, you cannot hear the quiet voice that says, "This is who you are." But NSDR is the holy invitation to return, to train the mind to come out of the war and back into wisdom. In these 10 minutes of physiological stillness, you are not escaping the world. You are preparing to lead it. And the brain responds, the circuits of awareness strengthen, the habits of focus sharpen, the ability to delay gratification, to hold a higher standard begins to solidify. You are not just becoming calm, you are becoming unshakable, and it is not just theory. This is recorded in the rhythms of your heartbeat, in the variability of your pulse, in the chemicals your brain releases when it feels safe again. When you practice NSDR daily, your nervous system begins to learn. I am not a victim of the external. I can regulate, I can lead, I can command attention, not scatter it. The prefrontal cortex, this gift from God designed to govern thought, morality, focus awakens under the gentle discipline of rest. 10 minutes every day is how you teach your brain that you are no longer ruled by distraction. You are ruled by purpose. And purpose demands clarity. Purpose demands stillness. In this stillness, the brain trains itself not to chase every impulse, but to hold steady in the face of pressure. This is spiritual warfare on a neurological level. You are not just resting, you are reclaiming dominion over your mind. Here is the expansion of Keynote No. 6, written in a powerful, spiritually engaging tone, with no headings and no ending sentences. The mind was never meant to carry chaos. It was created to carry clarity, conviction, and communion with truth. But in the relentless pace of modern life, your mind is pulled, stretched, and overloaded with noise that leaves it fragmented and weary. The ability to learn deeply, remember clearly, and feel emotionally grounded becomes compromised. You begin to forget not just facts, but focus. You lose sight not just of details, but of direction, and yet, within you, the design for restoration has never left. It has simply been neglected. But now we know scientifically, neurologically, and spiritually that a short, deliberate descent into sleep deep rest can restore what life tries to take from you. 10 minutes, that's all. 10 minutes where the brain begins to cleanse itself, reorder its circuits, and return to its original pace. In this profound state, brain activity slows, not in weakness but in wisdom. The very architecture of memory, the hippocampus, begins to stabilize. It is no longer flooded by cortisol. It is no longer fighting to encode information while under fire. It begins to receive, to organize, to file. Emotional experiences that once caused turbulence start to lose their charge. The amygdala, the seat of emotional reactivity, calms. It stops hijacking your peace, and in this quiet, learning is no longer a strain. It becomes a natural flow. What was once resisted now becomes retained. Your thoughts become aligned. Your inner world becomes quiet enough to hear again. This is not passive recovery. This is sacred alignment. Studies now confirm what ancient wisdom always taught rest, that is intentional, structured, and internal changes how we function. Students who use NSDR retain more, professionals who use it perform better, People who suffer from emotional dysregulation begin to feel grounded again. This isn't just about productivity, it's about spiritual wholeness. It's about coming back into agreement with how you were designed to operate. You are not built to live in loops of burnout. You were made to cycle between power and presence, action and rest, vision and renewal. 10 minutes of NSDR isn't a retreat from life. It's how you sharpen your sword for it. The emotional storms that once left you shaken begin to lose their grip. The patterns of anxiety, impulsivity, overthinking, these do not own you. They are learned, and what is learned can be unlearned. In this space, the nervous system resets, the mind softens, and the spirit finds space to speak again. You walk out of this state not just rested, but different, not just recovered, but realigned. You begin to respond instead of react. You begin to choose from clarity, not chaos. You begin to become unmovable, not because life gets easier, but because your mind is anchored. Anchored in peace, anchored in order, anchored in something higher than stimulation. In these 10 minutes, the brain is not only healing, it is remembering who you were created to be. And when the brain remembers, the body follows, the decisions follow, the destiny unfolds.